when you have conversations with people and stuff keep coming up, so it feel like, oh, the Lord, you must want me to do the same thing. So I was like, okay. So I sat in my I was getting my hair done, and I sat in the chair, and I was like, okay, God, if there's anything you want me to get rid of that has evil origins, let me know. I'm thinking the Lord finna say, all them shoes or that shirt or that book in the back of your closet that you didn't realize you had. Literally what entered my mind was Beyonce. I said, wait. I'm like, that's just my subconscious. Like, that's not the Lord saying that I got to get rid of Beyonce, right? Because I just refused. I refused to believe that Jesus didn't want me to still, like, be T-Bag. So when that happened, one of the lyrics to Black Parade kept entering my mind, right? And it was the lyric where she says, some ocean energy. And that kept going in my mind. And I felt like the Lord was like, just study. Just research. Just read. Like, you ain't even gotta be all that deep. Just read. And so I was like, okay, who is Oshun? I went down the biggest deep dive for some days on Yoruba spirituality, on Oshun or Orishas, on all the things. And I realized after doing some research, since Lemonade, that's where the shift was. Since Lemonade, she has centered false deities and embodied them, right? So in Lemonade, when she comes out with the yellow dress on and the water and all the things, like she becomes or tries to embody these false gods and the worship of ancestors, right? And so I was just like, I really felt some type of way. One, I felt some type of way because I was just like, but I like the music. I like the music. But I also felt some type of way because I didn't realize how blind I was. Because I liked the music so much that I didn't have discernment. The music made witchcraft beautiful. And that's the problem. And I was looking up also Black is King, and Black is King, when it came out, I thought that thing was so like aesthetically fire. Like I was just like, oh, like all the little scenes and all the stuff, right? And I remember cats that I know that are African or people on Instagram that are African, all of them was like, oh, this is the body, this is witchcraft, this is this. And I was mad at them because I was like, why y'all gotta be so deep? Like, why y'all can't just like, why y'all can't just enjoy the art? Because I'm a creative, right? And so I value creativity. I'm like, why y'all can't just... But what was happening was they had the eyes to see and the ears to hear. And because I liked the art and the music so much, I actually rejected their wisdom. And now I see. They knew what they were talking about. Because with Black is King, for example, like every scene, bro, every scene is her centering some kind of deity. It's multiple, even to the point that there's this scene where she's dressed like a cow, and she has this circle on top of her head, right? And what she's embodying, because it ain't even like speculation, it's like facts, right? So in that scene, she's dressed like a bull named Apis, A-P-I-S. I know Apis because I taught a text at Glory 2 years ago on Exodus 33 about the golden calf. I asked the question when I was researching that text, why did the Israelites make a cow to worship? Why didn't they make any other animal? And it's because they just came out of Egypt. One of the preeminent deities in Egypt was Apis. But now we have Beyonce becoming a false god in Black is King, embodying the golden calf that God judged Israel for. I felt away. I felt like, wow, what? why didn't I see this? I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to see it. So at the end of the night, after I did all my research, I deleted every Beyonce album off my phone. And I'm not even going to lie to you. I lamented that. There was grief because I told Preston, Beyonce is such a big part of my life. And not my life like I was listening to her every day, but when I think about moments, like I remember being 8, right, at Christmas and receiving her CD. I remember being with my friends when an album would drop and us listening to it and sharing over it. I remember going to concerts with friends and enjoying the concert, right? So there's these moments in my life that Beyonce is a part of. And so to cut it off or to remove it felt like, wow, like this is sad, but I have to be willing to trust that protecting my heart from evil is a good thing, right? Like I have to be willing to believe that there are spiritual realities at play that as a wise Christian, I should not be opening myself up to. So here's this conversation now. To me, the issue is less about Beyonce and more about the necessity of wisdom. I think we have a wisdom problem. Wisdom being the application of knowledge. And I think a function of wisdom is discernment. Discernment is the ability to notice and identify goodness and to respond in such a way where the discernment is shown to be good and right and true, right? And so we have this concert coming and we have a lot of people really excited about it, really promoting it. And I have friends, right, who kind of have a connection to Beyonce, and we have different calls because their call is to influence the influential. My call is to influence the influenced. And so so that's why I'm talking to y'all, the people who are influenced by the influential. But I think if we lack wisdom when it comes to participating in the big things that represent occult and witchcraft, then there is the potential that we are also lacking wisdom in the minor things, such as, should I go out with this person? Should I be this person's friend? Should I pursue this job? Should I read this book? Right? And so I think wisdom in the big stuff can trickle down into wisdom in the day-to-day life stuff, right? Okay. There are some artists where it's just music. I'm not doing what she's saying. I'm not worshiping Orishas. I'm not calling out to different deities. I'm not talking about Oshun. I just like the music. It's just music, right? But then he says, what the pagans sacrifice, they offer to demons and not to God. Listen, I do not want you, Christians, to be participants with demons. They're going to the altar, or they're going to the temple to simply eat food. The food is being sacrificed to idols. The Christians recognize that idols are not real gods, and therefore they assume that there is no spiritual consequence to eating the food. Paul has to warn them and saying, you know something, but you're ignorant to another thing, which is that even if they are sacrificing the food to an idol that it is not a real God, there is a spiritual dimension behind the idol that is demonic. And so by virtue of you taking part in the food that was sacrificed, you are also fellowshipping with the demon the food was sacrificed to. And I think that is potentially the principle that needs to be applied to our participation with certain music, concerts, whatever, is that even if we have the insight to know that it's just music, it's just food, the spiritual reality at play inclines us to be wise in saying, but I cannot fellowship with demons. I cannot do it. Here's the heavier part. He says, verse 21, this is 1 Corinthians 10, by the way. You cannot drink the cup of the Lord. He's talking about communion, the Lord's Supper, and the cup of demons. Meaning that when you take part in communion, there's a fellowship with Christ and an association with Christ's body because of the fellowship of the Lord's Supper. And he then draws that out into them eating meat sacrificed to idols, which is in the same way taking part in the Lord's Supper is fellowship with Christ and identification with Christ's body. Then also in the same way, when you eat meat sacrificed to idols, there is fellowship with demons and identification with the idolaters that are doing the work. And so what is at stake then is a matter of witness and a matter of fellowship, because there are people who may see your partnership with certain artists, and by partnership I simply mean just being in the temple, being in the concert, that it does something to their conscience, where now they don't have the same tools and the same wisdom and the same knowledge you have, but because you're there, they can then assume that they're in the right place too, right? So it's a matter of witness, but it's also a matter of fellowship. I don't know. I can't speak to the implications of what fellowship with demons is, because the text doesn't say it, right? Because there are times when we can listen to certain music or watch certain things or go to certain places and there is no discernible negative effect, right? So let's say, I used to listen to 3 6 Mafia all the time, right? I never felt like I got possessed. I didn't have no demon manifest in my room. Yeah. So I could assume that because I can't discern the negative effects, that means that there aren't any. So that's why I feel like faith and trust has to be a part of this, because we can't judge the goodness of a thing on the basis of how do I say this again? Okay, let me back up. Genesis 3, Eve, there's a tree. She says the tree looks good for food. It is a delight to the eyes, and if I eat it, I'm gonna be wise. She judged the goodness of the tree by its effect. It looks good, it's gonna taste good, therefore it is good. That's bad judgment, and that's bad wisdom. We do not judge goodness that way. How do we judge goodness? By what God has said in his word. Goodness is revealed in Christ himself. So if it aligns with the nature of God, therefore then it is good. So for example, when she looked at the tree, what would wisdom have looked like? The tree she would have said, it looked good for food. It's a delight to the eyes. But God said, the day you eat of the tree, it's going to surely die. So it don't matter what it look like. It don't matter what I think it's going to do. What has God said? I saw in my comments the other day, yesterday, this lady was like that she went to a Guns N' Roses concert and she had the time of her life and nothing negative happened. And it's like, wonderful. Maybe God protected you. Awesome. But maybe something negative did happen and you're just unaware of it. Maybe it is that deep, right? Like maybe it is that deep and we're just shallow. Because when you're in a pool, in the shallow end, the deep end looks the same. It don't look deep. It looked like the shallow end and the deep end have the same depth until you move towards it. And when you move towards the deep end, then you realize, oh, it is that deep. I just was on the wrong side, so I didn't notice it, right? And so I think that is why there is a necessity for wisdom. And again, for the new people, I'm getting gassed up now. Again, this is bigger than Beyonce. She's a case study for our lack of wisdom. That's what matters, right? Because when she's gone, there will always be opportunities for us to make bad decisions and what we watch, what we digest, what we entertain, right? And so what we need is wisdom. Wisdom cries out. So yeah. That's why I want to put the burden on you to do this. Pray. Ask God what he would want you to do. Because at the end of 1 Corinthians 10, what Paul ends up saying is, you know what? Whatever you do, do it to the glory of God. That right there is what we don't do. We don't seek God about if this thing will bring him glory. And so that's what I encourage you. Pray. Ask God. Talk to wise people and say, Lord, do you want me to go? Do you want me to go here? Do you want me to be in relationship with this person? Do you want me to read this book? Do you want me to see this movie? Do you want me to continue this friendship? Do you want me to have this job? You know what I'm saying? Like we have to be that dependent because God is worthy, right? Like he is Lord, he is King, and therefore he deserves all glory, all honor, all praise be to him. And here's the beautiful thing, y'all. Even though there is a cost to consecration, there's a cost. There is so much joy. There's a freedom, and there's a wisdom, and there's even this, even lately, like my mind is clearer. I'm able to discern things in ways that I wasn't before when my mind was foggy with just worldliness. And so that's the good news, is that when God prompts you to cut a thing off, it isn't to leave you empty, but to fill you. Is that he has to get things out of the way so that you could be filled with the Spirit more and more. And so that's my encouragement. The Lord, I don't know if y'all noticed, I feel like he is pushing me more towards just being more upfront and about confronting the demonic and witchcraft. Anyway, her dream. Listen. All right, now I'm gonna get off because I gotta go write a sermon. So she said that she was at Beyonce's concert, and in the dream, Beyonce was on stage, and she was dancing and singing and doing all the things, and she was actually able to see. This is a dream, right? So I'm not saying that this is real, but she was able to see the demon at work within Beyonce. And she said he was the biggest demon she's ever seen in her life. And I was like, what you mean by big? Like he looked like a giant, like he was like Shaq. Like, what you mean? And she said, no, he was bigger than anything you would ever see on earth. She was like, but the scary thing is that the demon's face was nurturing. It looked loving. It looked caring. It looked like it was happy to be and serve the people. And while the demon is on stage dancing and singing, the people, the audience, is being crushed under an invisible weight. But they were so infatuated and seduced by the demon that they didn't notice that they were dying. And whether that dream is true or not, I do think it speaks to we have to be aware of the devil's schemes, and we have to be discerning on what we open ourselves up to, especially in the West. I think we would do well to spend more time with our African brothers and sisters, because they, and Haitians and Jamaicans, they be sensitive to stuff in ways that we aren't. I think we're way too cynical. And the way the occult and witchcraft and New Age is kind of not even seeping, but snatching up people by the day, we gotta be careful.
My heart's desire is that this content was a blessing to you. If it was, please be a blessing to me. Hit that subscribe button and make sure you join our Facebook group, Woman to Woman with Lady Aisha Fisher. Love you.